Hello. So I'm here just to go through all the calculator tricks that we learned in this unit so that you have them all in one place. The first one was in this first lesson where we were finding the mean and standard deviation of a table like this. Our formulas are back here earlier in the lesson, and I have examples of using the formulas throughout the lesson. But just to real quickly remind you of calculator steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Stat and then Edit or Enter. I'm going to type my X values or variable values in L1. So in this case, it's 0, 50, and 100, I believe. And then in the L2 section, I'm going to type in the probabilities of each of those things, making sure to keep them in order the same way. In this case, they're fractions, but you could obviously type decimals in there as well. So 25 out of 36, 5 out of 36, and the last one is 1 out of 6. So once we have those in there, I like to do second quit. If you're using a phone app, it really is helpful if you do second and then this quit, which is the mode button. That way it doesn't get kind of stuck inside that table. And then we're going to hit stat, one bar, or calc, one bar stats. List should say L1, frequency list should say L2. So second 2, and then calculate. And it gives us the mean, which is the X bar, and then the standard deviation is the one that's got that sigma symbol, looks like an O. That is standard deviation. So that's how we find mean and standard deviation using your calculator from a table like this. If you do have an older calculator, when you go to one bar stats, it won't bring up that like list frequency, like table kind of thing. You'll just have to type it in by hand. So after you go to one bar stats and push enter, you will then do second 1, comma, second 2, and then push enter. So it should say one bar stats L1, comma, L2. And then you'll be able to get the same thing. So that is the first thing that we needed our calculator for. The second thing I did in this lesson about normal model, I demonstrated how we can use our calculator instead of the z-table to find probabilities. You can still use the z-table, nothing wrong with the z-table. If you get the z-table, keep using it, not a big deal. But if I wanted to use my calculator, I'm going to do second vars. And then we're always using normal CDF. We will never use normal PDF. We only use normal CDF because we're always finding like a range. Then we're going to leave lower alone most of the time and then put upper as my z-score. All right. If we keep it that way, if we keep the lower as this -1e99 and then your upper is your z-score, then your calculator will find the less than probability, just like your z-table does. We're going to leave mean and standard deviation alone because we already found the z-score. I'm going to hit paste and then enter. Again, if you have an older calculator, when you go to normal CDF, it'll just stay on the home screen. You won't bring up that little menu. So you will have to type in the -1e99, comma, your z-score, and then push enter. The E is second comma, by the way, to get that E. And then I did demonstrate in the lesson if I wanted to use my calculator to find a greater than probability. I mean, obviously I can just do 1 minus, just like I would for my z-table, to get the greater than probability, and that still works. But if you wanted your calculator to give you that to begin with, when I do my normal CDF, I can say my lower is my z-score, so in this case 1.23, and then I can make my upper positive 1e99. And that will give us the greater than, because we're starting at 1.23 and we're ending at forever and infinity. Same thing, if you have an older one, you have to type those in with the comma in between. And that gives us the greater than probability to start with. So that's kind of fancy. Again, normal model stuff is definitely not necessary on the calculator. Not a big deal. Okay, and then we get to the geometric binomial stuff. I didn't show you guys this in class because typically with geometric, the questions are easy enough that we can just use formulas. But if you wanted to, there is, when we go to our second vars menu, there are options for Geom PDF and Geom CDF. You can use those. So if I know it's a geometric model and I want to find the probability that the first question I answer correctly is the third question, or that I don't get one right until the third question, something like that, that is geometric. So if I'm talking about just the third question, probability that x equals something is always PDF. It asks for p, which is 0.25. And then x value is we want it to happen on exactly the third question. And then I can hit paste and it'll give me that same answer that I got by just doing regular probability rules. And then if I had a question that said like 3 or fewer, that it'll take me 3 or fewer questions to get one right, I could use geom CDF. And then again, p is 0.25 and x is we want 3 or less. So that is a quick way to get through some of those geometric probabilities. Again, a lot of times, I put 2 decimal places. Whoops. A lot of times it's easier to just use the formulas or just use regular probability rules for geometric, but you do have that option if you want to. There you go. For binomial is where we're getting into the ones where you definitely need to use a calculator because it gets really, really complicated. So for example, if I wanted to find the probability of getting exactly 4 questions right, for each question I had a 1 in 4 chance. So always get the confusion of when do I use PDF, when do I use CDF. PDF is for x equals a number. CDF is for x is less than or equal to a number. I always think P is for perfect or precise. C is for cumulative. You got to remember it one way or the other. Write it down, make a note. Try to come up with a cute little mnemonic device to help you remember, but you got to know it one way or the other. So in this example, I want x equals 4. I want exactly 4 successes. So I'm going to do binom PDF. And then there were 10 questions on this quiz, so trials is 10, P is 0.25, had a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right. And then we wanted exactly 4 successes, so x value is 4. And there we go. And then if I wanted a probability of, you go find the less than or equal to questions. So if I wanted probability that you get 6 or fewer questions right, that is when we use binom CDF. So binom CDF does x is less than or equal to a number. In this case, 6 or fewer would be less than or equal to 6. So there were 10 questions. Probability of getting one right, 0.25. We want 6 or fewer. Oops, I swear. Again, on the older calculators with all of these geom, PDF, whatever, you just have to type in those numbers with a comma in between. It won't bring up that little menu, but we do it the same way. So that is your quick calculator trick stuff. Hopefully that helps. Just put it all in one place and remind you of what we can do on the calculator.